Welcome to African Folktales by Big Mark, where timeless stories come to life. Each tale is more than just a story, it's an experience. So sit back, relax, and let the magic unfold. In the ancient land of Sunvale, where the hills breathed and the wind carried secrets from the ancestors, there lived a couple, Baba Adewunmi and Yeye Moriike. They were farmers, humble and quiet, known for their kindness, but also for the one thing they lacked, a child. For 19 seasons, their home stood silent. No lullabies. No tiny feet. Only the sound of wind through the yam fields and the long, sorrowful songs Yeye sang at night. The villagers whispered. Some blamed the spirits. Others said the couple had angered the gods. But no one dared speak such things to their faces. Instead, they brought gifts of herbs, prayers, and hope that never took root. One night, under a sky smeared with stars, Moriike knelt at the shrine of Oromo, the god of wisdom and fate. Her voice was hoarse from years of unanswered prayers, but this time, she made a promise. If you give me a child, Oromo, she whispered, she will not belong to me. She will be yours. I will give her to the spirit frame, to serve your will forever. Just give me a daughter to love, even if I can never truly call her mine. The wind stilled. The moon blinked behind a cloud. And somewhere in the shadows, something ancient stirred. That very month, the skies darkened twice, once during the day and once during the night. Two eclipses, one solar and one lunar. The elders of Sunvale gathered under the Iroko tree and murmured among themselves. Such a pairing had not happened in over 200 years. It was a sign. And then, under the veil of that second eclipse, Nyara was born. The midwives said she didn't cry at first. She opened her eyes, and the room turned cold, as if the air itself paused to witness her. Then she smiled, just briefly, and the lamp in the corner of the room flickered to life without a touch. A mark shaped like a crescent moon curled behind her left ear. The priestess of Spirit Frame came that night, uninvited, and laid her hand on the child's head. This one is no ordinary child, she said. She is Spirit Frame touched. The vow has been heard. The spirits have claimed her. From that day on, Nyara lived between two worlds. She slept in her parents' hut, but she belonged to the temple of Spirit Frame. The priestesses visited weekly, teaching her sacred songs before she could walk. She was forbidden to eat certain foods, never to step in blood, and she could not play with the other village children past dusk. At age 7, she was veiled. It was a simple cloth at first, woven white silk, passed down from generations of temple maidens. It covered her head and shaded her face. The veil was not just tradition. It was protection. It shielded her from the desires of men and from the eyes of the world, for the spirit frame within her was said to be dangerous when provoked. Her parents obeyed every instruction, even as it broke their hearts. Each birthday, Yeye Moriike would sew a new piece of clothing for Nyara, only to watch her wear it to the temple and leave it behind. Baba Adewunmi would carve toys from wood and leave them at her doorway, never knowing if she saw them. They loved her deeply, but from a distance. One day, while sweeping the compound, Moriike saw Nyara watching the sky. The veil fluttered slightly in the breeze, and for a moment, her mother glimpsed the girl's eyes, wide, curious, aching with questions. Why must I wear this veil always? She asked softly. Moriike froze, broom in hand. She had been waiting for this moment, but now that it had come, her mouth felt dry. Because we made a promise, she said. Before you were even born. To who? To the spirits. To the spirit frame. To the gods that walk unseen. Nyara turned her gaze back to the clouds. And what if I don't want their promise? Moriike's heart sank. She bent down and held her daughter's hands. It is not about what we want, my child. It is about what we owe. Those words hung in the air like incense smoke, sweet and choking. And though Nyara said no more, something inside her shifted that day. A seed was planted. Not of rebellion, but of curiosity. The kind that blooms in silence and waits for the right wind to stir. The village elders praised the family for honoring their vow. They said Nyara's presence protected Sunvale from drought and disease. Twice, during lean seasons, locusts turned away from their crops, and the rain came when others cried for it. But while the villagers sang praises, Nyara's world narrowed. She could not dance during festivals. She could not laugh loudly in public. She could not speak with boys. And as she grew older, her beauty became a danger. The older priestesses tightened the rules. More veils. More silence. And in the quiet corners of the temple, whispers began to rise. Some said the girl was too proud. That her eyes were too bold. That she asked too many questions of the gods. But others knew better. Nyara was aware. Aware of the power she held. Aware of the walls around her. And aware that the sacred and the human did not always walk in harmony. One night, during the annual rite of renewal, the high priestess took Nyara to the inner chamber. Only once every 7 years was the spirit frame veil unwrapped and touched by the moonlight. It was said to carry the wisdom of all the maidens who had served before her. As the cloth unrolled in the moonlit room, Nyara stepped forward. But just as she reached for it, she hesitated. In that hesitation, the high priestess saw something that alarmed her: doubt. "You fear your destiny," the old woman whispered. "No," Nyara replied. "I fear that my destiny was never mine to choose." The priestess said nothing. But from that night on, Nyara was watched more closely. Some believed she would one day become the highest voice of spirit frame. Others feared she might become its greatest betrayal. Far away, beyond the hills of Sunvale, fate had begun to stir. In the village of Stonehill, under the same stars that had marked her birth, a young hunter named Tariq was sharpening his arrows, unaware that the wind was already whispering her name into his dreams. And so began the slow unwinding of a sacred vow. One that would bring love, yes, but also ruin. For when a child is born under the twin eclipse, the light and the shadow are forever bound within them. And the veil, no matter how sacred, cannot hide what the heart refuses to forget. In the village of Stonehill, nestled at the foot of the Greenback Hills, there lived a young man named Tariq. Tall and sharp-eyed, with a quiet strength that drew both respect and envy, he was known throughout the land as a skilled hunter and a generous soul. He had no wife, though many offered their daughters. Tariq was a man not easily moved by charm or beauty. His heart, they said, was wedded to the forest. But fate does not always knock at the door. Sometimes, it drifts in on the wind. On the third market day of the dry season, Tariq traveled to Sunvale to deliver smoked antelope meat to the priests, a tradition passed down from his grandfather. That day, the market buzzed with the rhythm of drums, bargaining voices, and the scent of roasted plantains. He walked the dusty paths, unaware that his world was about to shift. She was by the river, drawing water with careful grace. Her veil was pulled low, but not low enough to hide the curve of her cheek or the stillness in her movement that made the world blur around her. Tariq paused. Something gripped him. Something quiet and ancient. He had seen many women. But this one felt like a story he had forgotten but dreamed about all his life. He asked a trader nearby, "Who is she?" The man did not answer at first. Then he leaned close, eyes cautious. "That is the girl of spirit frame. She is not for men's eyes, nor their thoughts. The spirits walk with her. Leave her be." But Tariq did not walk away. He did not speak to her. He did not follow her. But from that moment, something inside him began to stir. In the days that followed, Tariq returned to Sunvale under the pretense of trade: yams, dried peppers, goat hides. Each time, he walked the long way home, along the riverbank. Each time, Nyara was there. And though they exchanged no words, something grew between them, something unspoken, unacknowledged, and entirely dangerous. Nyara had felt his eyes long before she ever dared to lift hers. At first, she thought it a trick of the wind. Then a test from the gods. But over time, she began to wait for him. Just a heartbeat longer by the river. A slower dip of the calabash. Her chest would rise and fall in rhythm with footsteps she never turned to see. The priestesses noticed the change. She lingers too long in the morning, one said. She walks as if she carries a secret, said another. The high priestess, sensing the tide, summoned Nyara and sat her before the sacred mirror. What do you see? She asked. Nyara stared at her reflection. The veil, the silence, the girl beneath who was never allowed to speak freely. I see someone who belongs to everyone, except herself. The priestess's eyes narrowed. Then you must be reminded. The spirit frame you carry is not yours to twist. But the more they warned her, the more her heart strayed. One morning, clouds clung low over the hills, and the river was swollen from unexpected rain. Nyara slipped on the wet rocks. Her calabash rolled away, cracking against a tree. Before she could react, Tariq was there. He had stepped from the forest, as if drawn by her breath. Their eyes met. She froze. Her veil fluttered wildly. He did not touch her. He simply picked up the broken calabash and handed it to her. My name is Tariq, he said, voice low. I don't mean harm. Only, I see you. Even if the world says I shouldn't. Nyara said nothing. Her hands trembled as she took the calabash. Then she turned and ran. That night, she could not sleep. She heard his voice in the rustling of the trees, in the whisper of the river, in the silence of the temple walls. She tried to pray, but her mind wandered. She tried to sing the sacred chants, but her voice broke. In Stonehill, Tariq told no one of her. Not even his closest friend, Darren, a fellow hunter who often shared his fire. But secrets are living things. They grow in the dark. Darren noticed the change. How Tariq carved more often, his hands restless. How he walked to the hills without his bow. How he sat by the fire, staring into the flames. There is someone, Darren said one evening. Isn't there? Tariq said nothing. You forget, I know the look of a heart in chains. Tariq laughed softly. Then you know, there is no key. Back in Sunvale, Nyara was unraveling. She had been trained to silence the heart. But the silence was no longer enough. She began to walk the river path later each morning, hoping, fearing, to see him again. And one day, she did. This time, he did not speak. This time, she did. I shouldn't be here, she whispered. You're not alone, he replied. And though neither said the word, love had begun to wrap its fingers around their souls. But the spirits, it is said, are never blind. In the inner chambers of the temple of spirit frame, the sacred flame flickered violently during prayer. A dish of offering cracked in two. And the high priestess had a dream. A serpent coiled around the girl, whispering sweet poison in her ear. The signs were clear. Nyara's heart was no longer pure. The veil was thinning. And the gods were watching. Elsewhere, in a hidden grove, an old seer listened to the wind and smiled. Ah, she murmured, so the girl of spirit frame has begun to choose. She picked up her cowries and cast them. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Love, she said to no one, has entered the story. And with it, the breaking begins. So the days passed, and the tension grew. Each glance between Nyara and Tariq stretched thinner than silk. The villagers began to speak. First in whispers, then in worry. Nyara's veil flutters too freely these days. Has she forgotten who she is? Some even claimed they saw her pause at the river longer than she should, her head tilted as if listening to music no one else could hear. And then one night, under a half moon and restless stars, Tariq whispered words he was never meant to speak. Nyara, I would give my life just to hold your hand. She didn't run. She didn't speak. But something inside her broke wide open. And from that crack, destiny began to slip through. Because when the hunter gazes too long into the sacred flame, he does not return unchanged. And when the sacred heart begins to yearn, the veil can no longer hold. The river had become their secret temple. Every dawn, before the rest of Sunvale stirred, Nyara would step silently from the temple grounds, her veil brushing the earth like a shadow trailing truth. She walked like a ghost between worlds, one foot in sacred duty, the other in forbidden desire. Tariq would be waiting, always at the bend where the water whispered against stone. He never reached for her, never touched her skin, but in the stillness between them, something deeper passed. Words were few. Eyes did the speaking. Breaths, the listening. And in that fragile silence, a promise grew. They met like this for 7 days. 7 stolen mornings. 7 heartbeats that unraveled 19 years of obedience. The veil was never meant to be removed outside the sacred chamber, yet one morning, beneath the jacaranda tree by the river, Tariq spoke with trembling lips. Let me see you, just once, the way the gods have. Nyara looked away. The veil is not just cloth, she said. It's a seal. If it is lifted, something ancient stirs. He stepped back, respectful, but his voice was thick with longing. And what stirs? Is it death? No, she whispered. Worse. Truth. Later that evening, while the village celebrated the festival of first rains, Nyara remained in the temple, her face to the floor, praying with dry lips. She begged for silence in her heart, for forgetfulness, for the river to wash Tariq from her soul. But the gods were silent. Or worse, they listened. For the next day, she received a summons. Not from the high priestess, but from a voice she had not heard in years, her father's. Baba Adewunmi sat under the Iroko tree, his face drawn with time. The elders had requested his presence after rumors reached their ears, rumors that Nyara had been seen veering from her daily paths. You are not a child of disgrace, he said gently. Your mother and I, we gave you to the spirits because we believed in something greater than ourselves. Don't turn our sacrifice into a curse. Nyara's hands clenched her lap. Did you ever want to take it back? She asked. He hesitated. Every day. She looked up. Tears thick behind her spirit frames. Then why didn't you? Because some promises, he said, are not made to be broken. Even by love. But love, as Nyara was beginning to learn, does not wait for permission. That night, she returned to the river. Tariq was already there, pacing, the hunter undone by a heart he could not control. She stepped closer than ever before. Close enough to feel the tremble in his breath. If I lift it, she said, you must never speak of it again. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Her hands rose. The veil slipped like silk rain. And the world stopped. She was not beautiful in the way mortals understand. She was luminous. Like something remembered from a dream. Eyes the color of midnight prayer. Skin kissed with gold by unseen suns. And in the center of her forehead, faint but undeniable, a second mark. One no priestess had ever spoken of. The eye of spirit frame. Tariq dropped to his knees. I didn't ask for this, she whispered, pulling the veil back over her face, shivering as the wind rushed through the trees. I know, he breathed. But now that I've seen you, I can never unsee you. Days passed, but the veil no longer held her thoughts. The chants felt empty. The incense cloyed. The sacred flame flickered uneasily whenever she entered. Then came the letter. Slipped beneath her sleeping mat. No seal. No signature. Just 6 words. The gods are watching. Stop now. She burned it, but the message remained in her bones. Someone knew. The betrayal came swift and silent. Samaya, a junior priestess and daughter of one of the elder council members, had followed Nyara one morning, her jealousy bitter and sharp. She had always envied Nyara's gift, the way elders looked at her with reverence, the way villagers spoke of her as chosen. Now she had found her flaw. That evening, she whispered in the high priestess's ear. She lifts her veil for a man. The temple stirred like a nest of snakes. A secret council was called. Cowries were cast. Bones were read. The spirits gave no answer. That was answer enough. Nyara was summoned to the temple's inner chamber. No one smiled. No incense was lit. The walls, usually alive with the hum of prayer, stood still like stone judges. The high priestess looked at her with eyes heavy as tombs. Is it true? She asked. Nyara said nothing. Has the sacred veil been lifted? Still, silence. Has the girl of spirit frame broken her vow? Nyara raised her head. I am no longer sure, she said softly, if the vow was mine, or yours. The next morning, The river was guarded. The temple gates locked. And Nyara's name was no longer spoken aloud. Tariq, sensing something had gone terribly wrong, climbed the hills overlooking Sunvale. He watched the temple smoke rise and felt dread twist his gut. Then he heard it. The priestesses chant. Not for celebration. For cleansing. And his blood ran cold. They were preparing to sever her from spirit frame. To make her a hollow. A vessel without power. Unless he intervened. But to do so would mean betrayal. Not just of the temple, but of his own people. His family. His name. Still, he turned toward the sacred path. He would go to the forest of the old gods, the place where men entered without return. He would find the oracle of the forgotten, and plead for a way to save her. But what he did not know was that Nyara had already begun her own reckoning. Locked behind temple doors, staring into the sacred mirror, she spoke her truth aloud. I loved him. The mirror cracked. The flame died. And the gods began to awaken. So ends the chapter of Whispers. What began as silent meetings by the river has now grown into defiance. But defiance births consequences. And the veil, once lifted, cannot be worn the same again. This is the end of the story. Every story holds a seed of wisdom, and with each story, we grow a little deeper into the roots of our culture. If today's tale sparked a thought or touched your spirit, don't just keep it to yourself, share it. Let the story travel. Hit that subscribe button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and let me know which lesson stood out to you. I'm Big Mark, keeping the fire of storytelling burning bright. Until the next tale, stay wise, stay proud, and keep listening.